Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Plugged In from YAA. I'm joined again by Justice. My name is Justin Fisher. Justice and I are both auto experts from YAA, where we help the everyday car buyer navigate today's ridiculously, unnecessarily complicated car buying process. But we also talk about vehicle ownership. And my specialty is electric vehicles. Justice is also an electric vehicle owner. Justice, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well today. Doing very well. Nice, bright, sunny day here.
Wow, and I just forgot. I didn't realize until now that it's Friday. So wonderful.
It is Friday.
Yeah, in the chat, we've got quite a few people this morning. Learning Fast, Phil, Jordan, Bill, William, Susanna, Space is here, John. It's great to see everyone. It's been kind of a slow week in the EV news world. Would you agree?
Yeah, it's been one of the slower weeks that we've had in a very long time.
I know that Lucid is facing its second recall, but this one's a bit more serious. They've got some wire harness mistakes that had been done in the manufacturing process, so they're recalling all of the Lucid Airs to make sure that I'm assuming it's about nobody tripping over the wire because the recall involves the risk for unintended acceleration, but that's just because I'm guessing something's going to get caught on the wire. Crazy.
Yeah.
Let's start there. Justice, what do you think about the Lucid? Is it worth over $100,000? I've never driven one.
Well,
You have, though.
well,
You have.
I have driven one, and it is as a Tesla fanboy, it is my favorite EV that I've ever driven. It is amazing, but is it worth $180,000? I don't think any car is worth $180,000. It's a car. So, balance that. But it is the nicest EV that I've ever driven.
And before we get further into that, today's headline topic will be all about a new study that has come out. Why are people buying EVs and why are they not buying EVs? Looking at the statistics, I'm a very data-driven person. It's fascinating to me. I look forward to talking about that in a few minutes. Let's finish up with the Lucid, though, because I want to know, how does it compare to the Model S, which I'm familiar with the Model S. It
Hmm.
starts at about 100,000. It used to start at what, 80,000?
Yeah, yeah.
How
I've driven both. I've driven Model S many times. I love the Model S, but the Lucid is a smoother ride, a quieter ride, um, and definitely has more of a luxury feel. Like I love the Model S, and I would get one in a heartbeat. But the Lucid is much more luxury. You definitely feel the money more in the Lucid than do the Model S.
Wow. I would like to own a Lucid, but I don't think that's going to happen. Even if I was a millionaire, I don't think I could spend $150,000 on a car.
Yeah.
Learning Fast in the chat asks, did my Hyundai Ioniq 5 recall get resolved? I'm waiting to hear from the dealer on when I can come in. That was the instruction I received in the official recall information, is I will hear from my local dealer. Fortunately, I have one 15 minutes away. I do live in West Virginia, so that's not always the case. I'll see what they say. But as of now, I am leaving my parking brake on every time I park my Ioniq 5, so it does not roll into my neighbor's house.
Good idea. I know Jeep had that problem a few years ago. So it was
Yeah,
a good idea.
not a good problem to have. Bill, it's great to see you in the chat. Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Are people buying EVs? Well, I've bought two now. I've bought my first
Nice.
EV recently. I'd love to know in the chat, Bill, which two EVs have you bought and how are you liking them? Another news story that is bringing some positivity to the end of the week is that the first regular customer F-150 Lightning deliveries have happened. So not like Ford employees or media or anything like that. Regular customers in at least Texas and Michigan are receiving their F-150 Lightnings. The ones that have received their brand new electric trucks placed their orders about 1 year ago. Justice, are you jealous? I'm gonna
Yes, a
tear at your
one
heart
year
again.
lease.
Tell me about that
I believe it.
Cybertruck wait. Is it what, 2-3 years?
Yeah, with 2019 is when I ordered it. Yeah, so it's been a minute.
On paper, it's a bit cooler than the F-150 Lightning Pro, if I may say so myself.
Well, on paper is the only place it exists. So
Oh, it's gonna happen someday, Justice. Bill
someday.
in the chat says started with a 2013 Leaf. I believe that had about 90 to 100 miles of range, and then stepped up to a Nero EV. I'm a big fan of the Nero. That's definitely one of the best budget electric vehicles you can buy out there right now, and it's not too hard to find one. It was really hard to find my Ioniq 5. Waiting for a Fisker Ocean reservation. That's wonderful. Bill, I wonder if you've checked out our big resource of all about the Fisker Ocean, the Fisker Flexi lease, all about the specs of the vehicle, the pricing, when it's going to actually arrive, who's building it. All of that information is on our joinyaa.com Fisker Ocean page. We're building on it, expanding it, updating it as new information comes available. If I lived near one of the coasts, because I believe that's where the Fisker maintenance centers will be, service centers, I would probably go for a Fisker Ocean. I'm a big fan of what it offers on paper. And as far as the early reviews have shown with just prototype vehicles, I love the Ocean. But I live in West Virginia. I don't think there will be any way for me to get one serviced without driving 5 hours. So that's why I went with the Hyundai. Justice, do you think that Ford will be able to produce enough F-150 Lightnings, let's say in 2023, not even this year, to deliver half of the 200,000 reservations they have on the books? Or is it going to be a part shortage that drags on even further? What do you think?
It's going to be a shortage that keeps dragging on and on for a couple more years, my guess is, and demand will keep going up. So the chance of them catching up next year is almost zero. There's just no way anybody is going to be able to catch up. I mean, even Tesla is stopping reservations because they can't catch up.
Yeah.
It's going to be difficult.
In the news this morning, we saw that Tesla is pausing some deliveries because they're not able to get the supplies from one of their suppliers for charging ports. You can't charge an EV without a completed charging port, right? Everyone's affected by the supply shortage, even Tesla. Although Tesla has been less affected, and that's why they've been able to hold on to such high market share in the US and globally. We had someone in the chat asking, does the Kia EV6 have the same recall problem? Yes, it does. They are the same vehicle when it comes to the electric powertrain. The exact same EGMP platform stands for Electric Global Modular Platform. Yeah. Somebody called it EGIMP on a different podcast. Wasn't me until now, I guess. Until now. But yeah, it's the same vehicle. I finally saw a Kia EV6 in person. I tried so hard to test drive one, but I could not find one anywhere near me in early April when I was buying. I still like my Ioniq 5 better, but I must say the EV6, it looked better in person than it did on the computer. I'm more of a fan of it now that I've seen it in the flesh or in the metal. Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
it
indeed.
was good at the LA Auto Show when we went and saw it and sat in it. It was a really nice vehicle, and I figured it would take off. But of course, you have to be able to make them first.
Yeah, and looping back to the Ford issue, and if they can make enough F-150 Lightnings, I know that in the first quarter of 2022, Ford was only able to produce about 7,000 or just a hair under 7,000 Mustang Mach-E's. That's their flagship electric vehicle until now, when the F-150 Lightning is finally coming out. If they're only able to make 7,000 Mustang Mach-E's, I'm guessing they're having a bit of issues trying to get ready for 200,000 F-150 Lightning Pros, Platinums, Lariats, and all those different trim levels that are coming out. Zach and I the other day, we were just chatting about how 1 out of 5 F-150 Lightnings that Ford is making right now in Michigan is the base model Pro. Any idea why that is, Justice?
I'm assuming availability of parts on the rest of it, chips and everything else.
I'm sure that's actually a really good point. Nobody talked about that in the media, but what we know so far is that it's because Ford has so many fleet orders, like thousands and thousands of fleet orders, that they are kind of in a position where they have to fulfill these big high dollar fleet orders. So 1 out of 5 F-150 Lightnings that they're making right now is actually the lower profit margin. I don't know if they're making any money off of the Pro. I mean, it's supposedly starting at $40,000. I wonder if the fleets were able to secure that $40,000 price and avoid the dealer markups that we've seen for the rest of us. Because right now there are F-150 Lightnings listed for sale, incoming inventory. You can check it out at YAA Car Search. Some dealers are listing them for over $100,000. I'd buy a Cybertruck for $100,000, but I don't know about an F-150.
But even that won't be $100,000 because there's no dealer to mark it up.
Yes. Yes. Which brings us to Ford Model E. There haven't been any updates on Ford's Model E and Ford Blue plans in a while. I've been checking, wanting to know what's going on. It sounds like the division of Ford into these two separate entities, it's basically complete. It's happening, but the dealers so far have not been directly impacted. They're really waiting to see what their orders are going to be. How are they going to adapt to the Ford Model E for electric and Ford Blue for combustion models? Are they going to get to pick and choose which one they go into? I don't know, but that'll be very interesting because it's clear that Ford is going that route, because if you don't want to deal with dealer markups, then just go buy a Tesla, right?
Yeah.
Or a
I mean,
Polestar.
and more of the manufacturers are selling direct now. And I think consumers would really prefer that at this point, having dealt with these dealers. So there's just a lot of legal fights to be had now.
Good morning, Kevin. It's good to see you in the chat. Thanks for joining us today. Shall we talk about the big old study? Why
Yeah.
people do and do not buy EVs. Yes? Let's talk about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Let's talk
I
about it.
don't think it'll surprise very many people.
So JD Power, very respected, they have a US electric vehicle consideration study where they looked deeply into what it would take for EV ownership to really just take off in the United States. What factors affect how likely someone is to purchase an electric vehicle in 2022? They surveyed 10,000 automotive consumers from February to April. That's a very high sample size. I have a scientific background. Most sample sizes are like 1,000, maybe less than that, 500. 10,000, that's a great sample size. So I take these results seriously. They found that 24% of automotive consumers, so drivers like you and me, said they were very likely to purchase an EV, which is a 4% increase from last year. Can't help but wonder how much gas prices had to do with that. Justice, in California, where you live, what would you estimate that the percentage would be for California? What percentage of drivers in California would be saying that they plan or want to buy an EV for their next vehicle? Just give me a number.
Oh, I would say probably the highest here. I would probably say at least 60%.
That's a lot. Here in West Virginia, I feel like I'm surrounded by a lot of common sense folk. Like they know that if there are fast chargers nowhere near here, why would they buy one? Charging at home isn't always good enough when you live in the middle of nowhere on curvy mountain roads. So I feel like here it's probably less than 10%, but I should do my own survey. I should do that.
I would agree. I think most of the nation is going to be below the 25% mark. I just think California has the infrastructure for it. So it's a lot more accessible here and it makes a lot more sense.
And when thinking about EV adoption, there are so many factors that go into this new realm of automotive ownership experience that we have not had to think about before with combustion vehicles. For example, renting versus owning a home. That could be a major factor in whether or not you're going to have easy access to charging, right? Is this something that you've encountered?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I even got my landlord to install an outlet for me uh, with the Model 3, but most people don't. Most people don't think to ask that. Most landlords don't know what it takes to get that, so they don't bother to do that. They think it's going to be thousands of dollars, or you have to put in this whole station instead of an outlet. And so you really crop out a lot of multifamily units for people.
Yes, and a lot of these property managers may not be aware that lots of state level and even utility level incentives exist, just tossing money at them to install these chargers for their tenants. And it's super interesting to me how the utilities, they know what they're doing. They're going to make some money off of EV adoption
Mhm.
as long as the grid doesn't go down because of, what if we all bought EVs in 2022? Well, luckily that's not happening, right? There's not enough EVs for 1 out of every 10 drivers to buy an EV right now. But if that were to happen, they'd be concerned. So definitely they're thinking about how they can fit themselves into the picture of automotive ownership in 2025 or 2030. And a part of that is going to be finding a way to help those who live in multifamily housing charge their electric vehicle, right?
Yeah, my utility was paid for installation here. They did it for free with my landlord. I gave them the program, but they they did it for free just to get it in there. And then he installed it in 15 of our spaces since they were paying for it. So there is future expansion here as well for that.
Personally, I always try to stay a few steps ahead of the game, and I do see electric rates being impacted by EV adoption. It's going to happen. Not sure when, especially where I live in West Virginia, where EV ownership is currently about 0.4% of new cars. That's not of like every car, that's of new cars. That's really low. But I think it's going to happen. I would like to eventually go solar and have battery backup so that I can power my transportation with the sun. I don't live in a very sunny place. So another reason for me to wait, other than the fact that I'm not ready to shell out $20,000, is that solar panels are always getting more efficient. So if you're thinking about
Mhm.
installing solar panels to power your electric vehicle at some point in the next 10 years, just be aware efficiency is always increasing. And what does that mean? You've got a limited amount of space on your roof. Well, with that given surface area, you'll be able to generate more electricity from that same surface area on your roof if you just wait a few years. Now you got to think about incentives and when do those expire and all of that. That's a whole different ballgame. But I have hope. I think that maybe in 5 years, I could power my Hyundai Ioniq 5 with solar. We'll see. That was a nice little, detour from our conversation. Thank you for bearing with me, Justice.
No, I agree. I think solar panels from, my parents got solar panels, but oh, that's going to date me if I say how long ago, but let's just say a long time ago, a very, very long time ago. And my mother just got some again last month on her house, and the efficiency was like 300% more efficient.
Yeah, I know that
You know,
the industry average over the past decade has gone from about 10% efficient to about 20% efficient. That's a great increase when it comes to electricity generation.
yeah, it's, in California, we have all of our laws now, all new buildings have to have solar panels, etc. And I think that it help with that because the more you produce and the more you research and can get it, the more efficient they're going to become and the cheaper. I mean, they're definitely a lot cheaper now than they were 10 years ago.
And before we dive into more reasons from the studies for why people do and do not adopt electric vehicle ownership, I don't want to forget about a good question that Kevin had in the chat. Kevin, this is a good one. Justice, I'm going to tap into your brain for this. Do you think Chinese EVs would be cheaper? Because right now we've got NEO, BYD, Lee. I don't know if Lee's ever coming to the US. Xpeng or Xiaopeng, depends on how you want to pronounce it.
Chopin, yeah.
Xiaopeng. We've got some Chinese automakers thinking about coming to the US. They've already entered the European market. I'm pretty sure these would be quite a bit cheaper than
Yep.
American-made EVs and European-made EVs, and that's the only way they would justify entering our market, correct?
Yeah, yeah. The BYD Model 3 knockoff is going to come in at half the price of a Model 3 and is extremely similar. I think with almost the exact same range, if not slightly more. So, I mean, I think they're going to come in. They're going to come in very, very strong. They're going to be cheaper, and they're going to really help shake the market up a lot and help the the budget buyers an awful lot, which is going to change the industry.
Matt has a good point. Personally, I don't know much about tariffs, but I know they're out there. I wonder how tariffs would impact the sale price of a Chinese made EV. I know that tariffs do affect the solar industry we were just talking about. And we know that the US government is often involved in incentives to promote the electrification of transportation. I can't help but wonder if they would craft incentives that would be, I guess, giving the most money to American made EVs. That's not currently how the incentives are structured, but there's been talk of that happening. We'll see. The EV market will be a very different place just 5 years from now, especially if the likes of
Yeah.
NIO and Xiaopeng enter the market.
Yeah, well, and you got VinFast, and I mean, a lot of these companies are already setting up headquarters all over the United States. Many of them right here in California. I think what VinFast is opening 10 dealerships here, just in California. So I mean, the market is about to change a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot of dealerships. VinFast is also building a gigantic new factory to build cars in North Carolina. VinFast is also known for being the automaker that lets you rent the battery instead of just the battery coming with the car. It's a bad thing if you don't want to pay $100 a month for a battery, but it's a good thing if you want to make sure that you, in theory, have the best battery technology as upgrades become available. If you just keep paying that monthly fee, I guess you could get a better battery 5 years later. Not too sure how it works, but we'll see if VinFast is successful.
Yeah, my knee-jerk reaction to that was, excuse me, was no way, that's awful. But it really just takes some shifting of thinking. You keep your vehicle, but you always have the best battery technology. You don't have to worry about it going out because you're renting it. They own it. They're going to take care of it. So I think it just takes some shifting and thinking on the VinFast.
Was Imperium another one of the startup EV makers, or was it a Chinese EV maker I just haven't heard of at the LA Auto Show? Where was Imperium making their debut at? Let us know,
I
Space. I'm
don't,
not quite sure.
yeah, I don't remember.
I've heard of it, but I
Yeah,
don't think we've heard anything since. That's not
I
a
don't
good sign.
know if that was one that we saw or not. Mario will remember.
Faraday Future. Do you know a Faraday Future, Justice?
I own Faraday stock. I most certainly do. I've driven
Well,
on one of their vehicles.
as a stock owner and one-time test driver, do you know how many reservations they have? I hope this doesn't make you upset since you're a stock owner. You
It's
have skin in the game.
but I think I read it, but it was super low, like what 400, 600, something like that.
401.
Yeah, I
Yep.
mean it was a 200 and something $1,000 SUV. We sat, we loved it, but clearly the price point, like it. Well, yeah. How many Bugattis are made every year? Because I mean that's the price point you're going towards.
Who owns Bugatti? Is it Volkswagen Group? I think it is.
I don't.
Yeah.
I have no idea. Igor knows. He'll tell us.
Maybe somebody will scoop up Faraday Future and we'll see them on the streets in no time. Yeah,
It was the nicest EV, like even more than Lucid. It was the nicest EV, but it's a chauffeured EV. It's like a Rolls Royce. You're not meant to drive that one. You're meant to ride in it. And
oh,
massaging seats that leaned back, and side to side screens up there. I mean, it
cool.
was super nice, but not for the average person at all, and not meant to be driving.
Sounds perfect for my lifestyle. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's loop back and talk one more time about those interesting. It's actually a pair of studies, one from JD Power, one from Autolist. I want to dig a little bit more into the fascinating data and what they found by asking 10,000 people what their plans are for EV ownership. So the JD Power one, another finding from their study was that 27% of consumers who own their home were likely to consider purchasing an EV. Those who rent, 17%. When I was renting in Dallas, Texas, I had EV chargers all around me. I would have definitely still gone the electric route. But if I was renting here in West Virginia, no way. Couldn't do it. I'd have to just buy a hybrid. I'm not surprised by that. But we have to remember that a large percentage of Americans and people around the world are renters, and that's definitely going to be a factor in the rate of EV adoption. Are landlords able to provide any charging infrastructure, or are they just going to be sticking with 110-volt outlets like what I do at my house? There's a lot of considerations when it comes to how living arrangements affect EV adoption. The study also showed that 37% of premium vehicle owners were very likely to consider an EV, compared with 21% of non-premium vehicle owners.
Yeah, so those who can afford it are more likely to consider it.
Yeah,
And
that's not a surprise, right?
no.
It still breaks my heart that the average transaction price for an electric vehicle is still 56,000. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Got to keep in mind that the payback time is greatly affected by two things: incentives and how much you drive. If incentives are applicable to your purchase, that cost can become a lot more reasonable quickly. If you drive a lot and you're going electric versus getting out of maybe a gas guzzler, you could be saving up to $3,000 per year on fuel alone. I've done the math. Depends on your situation, but still, EVs need to get cheaper. I can't help but wonder if General Motors CEO Mary Barra is going to be able to follow through on what she says, which is that GM, that's how they're going to be successful in the EV space, is offering a much more affordable set of options for electric vehicles. They say like $30,000 EVs. That would be great for EV adoption. I'm a little bit pessimistic just because of inflation, supply shortages. I don't know if GM could stay in business if they were selling $30,000 EVs.
I mean, Elon has promised that many times and has never been able to deliver either. So, I mean, it's a real challenge out there to get them that low. I mean, I know what the Fisker pair is saying the same thing, right? $30,000.
Yeah, the Fisker pair. Still don't know why it's
We'll
called a
see.
pair. Yep.
Because they can't
They
call
can't
it
call
the
it the Apple. Yeah,
yeah,
you
yeah.
got that one. That's good. Uh,
Made by Foxconn, the same people who make the iPhone are making that car. So
wow, there are layers to this joke. That's impressive.
yeah,
I think I figured it out. Okay, I figured out GM's strategy. They are going to subsidize their $30,000 EVs by just selling tons of $100,000 Hummer EVs. Is that it?
well, I mean that's the way Tesla started. That's the way a lot of the startups start, right? They get the super high expensive vehicles to try to subsidize and get it so they can come out with cheaper ones.
Yeah,
But I mean,
roughly 120 Hummer EVs have been sold, but each one's going for over 100,000. So I guess that's good money for GM, but pennies in the bucket when it comes to how
yeah.
massive they are. Justice, it's been a great chat. What do you think about EV ownership? Do you think that this is the future where we're looking at how to find charging for renting, how to find charging for multifamily housing, or do you think some entity like the government's going to step in and make this all a lot easier for us?
Well, I don't. So I'm very, very insulated, and I was talking to you. I did the reach on charging everywhere else, and the world has a lot of catching up to do. We're concentrating on cheaper EVs, but you can have a $200 EV if you don't have the infrastructure for it, then forget it.
It's just a
So
golf cart.
yeah, and well, even in golf carts, you can only have so many plugging in. You got to have the grid for it. You got to have everything else. So it's just, I think we have a long way to go, and the concentration, instead of being on cheaper EVs at first, needs to be on building the infrastructure.
Yes, good point. I almost forgot. I want to wrap up the show with a cautionary tale I saw on social media. This is for everyone out there who's thinking about EV adoption. Maybe you already own an electric vehicle. It's the risks of fast charging way too often. And I think next week we'll probably talk about this again. But here's what an owner of the Ioniq 5 has been doing with their brand new $60,000 electric vehicle. Says, I've had my Ioniq 5 for 3 months with 7,000 miles on it, and I've only charged at home once. They use Electrify America for all of their charging. Although this is a great incentive that I have taken advantage of a few times myself, it's important to remember EV ownership requires a whole paradigm shift for how you treat and maintain your car. Fast charging all the time, like this person is doing, is really, really bad for the battery. So, cautionary tale to start the weekend. Don't go to public fast chargers all the time unless you want to degrade your battery quicker. It'll end up having lower resale value, lower range. Don't do that. But with that said,
And when you rebuy that person's car, how do you know how long that battery is going to last? And how can you tell that they just destroyed it like that?
well, maybe this is a good time to share with the audience that we're going to have a very special guest in about 3 weeks on the show. It's Recurrent Auto's CEO. He's going to be on the show telling us how they are trying to be the Carfax of EV battery health. I am so curious as to how they are using machine learning to do this. This is going to be really big. If they can figure this out, which maybe they already have, in theory, we'd be able to be shopping for an electric vehicle, say in 2025. We come across that guy's car. We see that it's been fast charged way too much. It's got 70% remaining battery capacity. No bueno. And then don't buy his car, right? I am so interested in how this emerging industry of battery analysis is going to impact the future of used EV ownership.
Yeah, just to tie that back in together, you know what it's going to do? It's going to make VinFast look very attractive.
You're probably right. Whoa. With that said, everyone have a beautiful weekend. We'll be seeing you back here next week. Don't forget to check out our first videos that we have uploaded to the channel. We're going to have videos coming out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. 5 to 10 minute videos going deep into the EV ownership experience, the latest news, anything you can think of in the world of electric mobility. If you have questions, send me an email, justin@joinyaa.com. Justice, what's your email?
It would be justice with an S at joinyaa.com.
The Justin and Justice Show. Nice. Have a great weekend, everyone. Please hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe. We're trying to grow this channel so we can make EVs accessible to all. Have a great weekend. See you next time.
Bye, everybody.